Go. Hi, I'm here with Jurian Zürcher, founder and CEO of Sharp and Gentle Negotiation Institute. Jurian is a PhD in neuroscience. He worked over 2 decades in the pharmaceutical industry in various positions, from research to commercial. He has advised international companies, including several top 10 biotech and pharmaceutical companies, on high-stake negotiations. Jurian also lectures negotiation strategies and tactics at the University of Zurich. Jurian, thanks for joining me.
Yeah, thanks for having me, Seva.
All right, so could you please maybe summarize your background professionally and personally, also, why not, for our listeners and viewers?
Yeah, sure, thanks. As you said, I'm a neuroscientist by training, and after that, I've become a negotiator for the pharmaceutical industry. So basically, when they bring an innovation to the market, they need to negotiate the price with social health insurances in several countries. And yeah, that's where I also gained a lot of experience in negotiation. And privately, I have 2 kids, and those are also kind of tough negotiators.
Haha, okay, that's nice. Yeah, and as a father of two, I can all but agree with you. So, but why exactly negotiations? Like, at what moment in your life or in your professional tenure did you realize that negotiations are actually the most important, or at least the most important skill for you? Why negotiations?
I think you negotiate in all aspects of life, right? Professional, or as I said, with kids, with your wife, with friends. And to me, it was early obvious. Also, because of my father, he was a policeman, and he also taught me early that I should aim to make people collaborate and not escalate. And he always gave me some examples from his daily business. And then later, of
Okay.
course, in the business negotiation, I also implemented some tools like to navigate the negotiation towards where we want to go.
Okay, that's interesting. Interesting. But did you also work in different kind of industries or countries? Do you notice any difference in in how people negotiate across different cultures, or most importantly, across different industries?
Yeah, I mean, there are in different industries you have different rules sometimes, different laws that apply and regulate somehow the negotiations. So not all the negotiations in all industry work the same way. So they follow certain rules because the governments want them to restrict in their favor usually, not in your favor.
Mm.
Across cultures and countries, I realized actually one thing that surprised me, so that we usually these things, the tools that we apply, they work the same across the countries, across the cultures, because it seems cultures are probably more nuances how you put things, how you say something. Um, yeah, that was probably what I noticed the most.
Okay, so your most of your professional background is from pharmaceutical industry, for pharmaceutical biotechnical. So, can you say that negotiations are tough there, or is it just that they are different, or maybe they're not different from any other industry? Like, what is your take on that? Is it Can you say that negotiations in pharma is somehow different than other areas
Yeah, of
professionally?
course, it's certainly different because you're negotiating in the with the public sector of the
Okay.
countries, right? The pharmaceutical companies are private owned companies owned by shareholders, and they invest up to 2 billions to develop the certain new drug, and then of course you need to get a return on investment for that. And the
Hmm.
countries, as we know in Europe, they have tight budgets, yeah, also in the US. So it's always a big pressure on both ends in the negotiation.
Okay. Do you remember your most difficult negotiation case? professionally?
Yeah, I'm not sure if there was one that was most difficult, but basically all are kind of difficult in different ways. Yeah. Sometimes they are not convinced by the data, and then otherwise they are afraid you're selling more volume than you
Mm.
forecast, and this leads to different discussions. But in the end, it always comes down to the money and the budget.
Mm. Okay, thank you. Interesting. So you have come all the way from corporate professional to the owner of the business, and you've had a lot of negotiation on the way. If there's one piece of advice you could give to your, I don't know, 20-year-old or whenever you started your professional career, and if that would be related to negotiations, what would that advice be?
Yeah, I would advise myself to learn the skills early and also to use them in daily life situations because those situations are the best to implement them and to ensure that they get second nature.
Okay, that's interesting. That's interesting. So practice negotiation as much as you can.
Yes, yeah, indeed. With your kids, with your wife, with your friends, because there is, the thing there, the difference between these situations and professional negotiations is you cannot prepare. I mean, my daughter doesn't come to me and say, "Hey, Dad, I want chocolate. I schedule a meeting in half an hour and we can discuss." Right? She just comes before dinner and asks for it and now, not later. And then you need to react. So these are situations where you can use the tools, the skills that we teach, and after that you can review how it went and then think how you could act the next time this happens, and then you're prepared for the
Okay,
next time. But
that's
usually the first time you just need to try to react in these private situations on your own without any preparation. And that's why it's so much value to use these situations for training.
okay. That's really interesting. But actually, the idea of having kind of the same methodology and the same approach in negotiating at your workplace and like your family, like with kids, for example, the idea that the approach is kind of the same seems a little bit counterintuitive. So is it really like that? That the techniques, the negotiation technique, kind of work the same way across all of our life, or is it that you have to tweak it a little bit? So you always have to remember like where you are. Like I'm in the workplace, or I'm in the informal with friends, with family and stuff. Is it closer than it seems, or is it really different?
No, it's closer than it seems because we have one brain, and this has like a center for fear and aversion, and it has a center for rewards, and those are triggered in the same way, whether you're in business or in private negotiation, whether you speak with your colleague at work or with your wife or kids at home. I think with small kids, the techniques might not work until they are 4 or 5-ish,
Hmm.
but after that, they all the techniques they start to work also with kids.
Yeah, interesting. That's very. I think that's very interesting for our audience as well, because a lot of the people think that like B2B is very different. So when you're negotiating business, there is like much more factors at play, and people are rational at their workplace. They are analyzing figures, analytics, data, comparing like for like, and all this stuff. And but what you're saying now is that basically people are really irrational by nature, and it's not only it shows not only at home, yeah, but also in the workplace where they are faced with the necessity to take high stake decisions. Yeah, is that what I'm getting from you?
Yeah, I mean, in the end, it's our emotional brain that decides if it wants to accept something or not, and the rational brain is more like rationalizing the decision then. And because the emotional brain creates like either a motivation to do something or not, you can influence that way, and that's the focus of these techniques. And of course, as I said, the emotional brain works in any situation, private or business, and that's why this works so well, and you can
Okay,
apply it everywhere.
that's really interesting. Thank you. Um, so our next block is dedicated to creating your own business, creating Sharp and Gentle.
Hmm.
How did the idea of creating this Sharp and Gentle Negotiation Institute come about? What served an inspiration for you? When did you have that aha moment when you decided, like, now is the time to do it?
Yeah, actually, it didn't hit me just like, yeah. It
Uh-huh.
was just it came over time. I mean, you speak with friends about this and that, and then sometimes you give your input, and of course, I gave sometimes a structured input, with the ideas using these skills, and then friends said, "Oh yeah, you're a negotiator, right? I should come to you for some training." And at the beginning, I always said, "Yeah, probably I should do trainings, but I don't." And after a while, it was, "Yeah, probably I really should do that." And then I decided, yeah, to offer it.
No, okay, interesting. Was it before you started lecturing at the University of Zurich, or after that you decided to
It
proceed
was
with your own
actually
business?
around that time. So it was actually, I was kind of ready with it, and then a friend called me and they asked me for that entrepreneurship program if I would participate with the negotiation training, and it was like a perfect start because it came right at the perfect time.
Yeah, good. That's great. Thanks.
Yeah,
Uh,
indeed, it was great.
uh, uh, could you tell me? This might be kind of obvious, maybe a little even benign question, but what, in your opinion, makes Sharp and Gentle kind of different from the similar negotiation institutes or training or courses? Is it something in the approach or the course structure or whatever you feel necessary to highlight?
I think it is not easy to find a good training. There is many people who offer trainings, and I took a lot of trainings in my career, and unfortunately, many were not that good because what you learned was not applicable. They told you what you should consider, but not how you do it. So, the first thing that was important to me is that everything is directly applicable to the negotiation. And the second thing is what I realized is that people are either more assertive or they act more empathetic, but sometimes they struggle to find the right balance. Some they go too harsh,
Hmm.
some they cannot really stand their point and they feel uncomfortable. And sharp and gentle, as the name says, yeah, be sharp on your interests and gentle with people. We really show you how to strike that balance in a negotiation, depending on where you stand now. So we do an analysis where you stand, and then we give you some advice on what skills you could implement and work on to like balance the two.
Okay, interesting, interesting. So is it like you conduct real life negotiations with candidates to assess where they stand in terms of negotiation skills? How do you do that?
No, it's also we have like a questionnaire
Hmm.
with about 20 to 30 questions, and
Okay.
they answer, and then it gives them an impression how they what their behavioral preferences in certain situations.
Okay.
And based on that, yeah, we score that then, and the score gives them like a fingerprint, and then we know on what skills to work best for every individual.
Okay. Interesting. Thank you. So
It's
I
science based actually.
okay. Good. Good to know. You mentioned that a lot of people kind of tend to be either more empathetic kind of giving more initiative to the counterpart, yeah. Or the other extreme would be to be more assertive, yeah, so to kind of state your own wish and your own thing stronger without considering the other the counterparts, yeah, position. So, what are the other like most common mistakes in negotiations that you notice people do?
Yeah, I think in the professional negotiation is like that people are unprepared. They do not prepare goals. They do not think about their alternatives, and they do not listen well enough.
Mm-hmm.
And in the private one is that you don't review the situations that are difficult, like when the kid asks for chocolate or for more screen time, situations that always reappear, and you're never happy with the outcome, and you know these are the tough discussions in your private life, but you never really reassess them. Uh, and that's probably a bit the difference between professional negotiation. It's really the preparation that's bad. The review is usually you review it and you learn from it, but you can avoid a bad negotiation better. And in private, you cannot avoid it because it just happens, but you can learn from it for the next time it reappears.
Okay, so what you're saying kind of supposes that suggests that you need to do kind of your homework, yeah, a lot of homework in terms of both pre-negotiation and kind of post-negotiation, yeah. So to analyze
Yes,
how it went and yeah, okay,
yes, indeed.
uh,
It's work before and after always. Yes.
okay, that's interesting. Thank you. So now let's talk about the value of negotiation. So my first question here would be a lot of the people think that negotiation is mostly about making this or that type of agreements. Yeah. So coming to some agreement on conditions of a deal or whatever, could be also family life stuff. So what is in your how would you formulate what is in your opinion the true power of negotiation?
Yeah, usually you benefit most if you can establish a good relationship because then they come back and negotiate again with you. They give you the chance for more business. I think that's the true power, and that's why you should listen carefully what they need. You should build a strong relationship. You should connect with the people, and that's on a long run. That's I think that's the big thing. A single negotiation it can change your life. It's really if it's the big deal of your life. Yes, I agree. But in most situations, it's like that you're on a long term game,
Mm,
and for that you need to establish your strong relationships.
mm, okay. So if I if I try to put this kind of dilemma in front of you, so what is more important? Like you have a particular, let's imagine the situation. So you have a particular negotiation, could be a high stake negotiation, and you have a choice, like either to strike a good deal or to to be a good guy with whom the counterpart would want to negotiate again at some point in future. So, what is your kind of what is your basic standing here? So, what motivates you more? Is it like go for it and yeah, take it, or just like I just want to be liked.
Yeah, it's not. I'm not aiming for want to be liked. I aim for want to be respected.
Mm-hmm.
Because if you want to be liked, then you act from a weak position, I would say.
Mm.
You cannot be liked and stand firm on your interests. I think that's very difficult. So better aim for being respected in a way. But of course, I mean, if they offer me a very good deal for myself, and if they are willing to accept, I will take it. But what I think doesn't work is, the Trump style, like to pressure like hell
Hmm.
and then push them to the wall, because they can say no, and if they say no, it's gone.
Mm.
So in the end, that's why I say it's very important to strike that balance.
Mm.
Yeah. I don't believe in it's called bulverism. Yeah, take it or leave it. I'm not I don't believe in bulverism, and many others neither. So
Okay. Oh, it's interesting that you brought up Trump. Yeah, it's kind of the talk of the town recently. So everybody's talking and a lot of the highlights. But yeah, I want to talk about something else in relation to his negotiation style. So there is this kind of strategy when I think one of the ways to call it is like ask for more, is when you intentionally push your counterpart to the limit, which is sometimes unreasonable, like objectively unreasonable. Yeah, but the idea is that you push the counterpart to the limit so that the other side would be willing to meet you halfway, but this halfway is actually your target value, because you were not entitled to anything at the end of the beginning of the negotiation. Yes. So what do you think about this strategy? How sustainable it is? How effective it is? Yeah. What is your take on that in general?
yeah, it's an effective strategy. It's called anchoring. It's absolutely the same. So it's like when I don't know, you're in Turkey and you go to the bazaar to buy a carpet or so. The guy will also always anchor high,
Yeah.
and then you try to anchor low, and then in the end, it's a bargaining. But it's usually if it's about the price, it's one dimensional, and that's not what professional negotiators aim for. Yeah? We try to include more options to make a good deal for everyone. And what he does is really is almost a bargaining. And of course, he can be successful. Like for Switzerland, he announced 31% tax, and now I think he's currently down to maybe 10 or so. And 10 seems already like a relief,
Yeah.
but it's
Everybody's
still
happy.
high.
Like it's only
But
10.
he will never,
Yeah.
yeah, he will never accept it. And of course, you need always to make yourself clear that what the game is he plays, and then you can recognize it. But also for me, it seems psychologically that this seems already like a relief, but in fact it's not. Yeah, it's bending the reality.
Hmm. Do you think it's possible to negotiate with people like Trump without, um, there is a lot of talk now about this retaliatory tariffs, and everything. Do you think that it's possible to negotiate with this type of aggressive kind of approach without, eye for an eye, strategy? So is there a way when you are faced with a really aggressive negotiator? Is there a way to
Yeah.
confront them in a sharp and gentle manner?
Yes, there is. I mean, usually these guys, they have a high ego. They want to be heard, so you need to let them speak. You don't interrupt them. This makes them more aggressive. And then be empathetic. Label them, mirror them, and ask questions. But don't argue, because arguing is like, they position themselves and they present the claim. And if you argue against, it's like you position yourself, and then it's positioning, and this doesn't work. So you need kind of to analyze them by asking a tons of questions, by mirroring, by labeling, and then you can interact with them in a way they feel accepted, because that's what they need. They need to feel respected and accepted, and from there you can move on then.
Okay.
But I
Interesting.
think that's also the issue sometimes with the European Union. They immediately take an aggressive counter position, and I'm not sure if it helps. Of course, it's a political thing. Part is probably also just what you see on the screen, and there might be different discussions on the phone, person by person.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. Let's talk about a little bit about emotions in negotiation. So, is there any way? So, my understanding is that. Correct me if I'm wrong. My understanding is that emotions is not something very useful in negotiation. Maybe I'm wrong, but yeah, you can correct me on that later. So my understanding is that emotions is not kind of negotiations don't benefit from emotions, and we've seen it in politics, and everybody has their own life stories, life cases, so to say. Yeah. So is there any way that you can, separate from your emotions or kind of avoid emotions from getting into negotiations and influencing it? Do you have any advice on that?
Yeah, you cannot avoid emotions, right? Because the emotional brain is the one that is usually part of the decision
Mm.
making. So emotions are not per se negative. It's only or dangerous. It's only the negative emotions. And what what you need to aim for is like to reduce them or not to trigger them. And that's the way to negotiate. So you use like these empathetic tactics like mirroring, labeling, or asking questions, and of course listening, not interrupting. This is very important. So then you don't trigger negative emotions, and this is we would say in Switzerland 50% of the rent. So you're already on a good way if you do that. And the rest, of course, you can bring an argument, but the thing is, most people, um, their gut feeling is that they always need to argue, and that's wrong. You should try to get to know their emotions behind the reasons, and this makes you much more successful in a negotiation.
Okay, yeah, I can understand it, especially when we are talking about ego and stuff like that. Especially when you are faced with a narcissist, like we discussed a couple of minutes before, and there is this kind of feeling that agreeing to something means, failing. Like you have to agree with somebody else's proposition, and it means that you fail because the negotiation doesn't end on your terms. I'm just speaking about emotions, and one of the triggers for the emotions. Yeah. So
Hmm.
uh, have you had these cases in your life when uh, the you understand that negotiations just cannot end on your terms? That's just there's no way that you can kind of push your agenda, and so just what you can do is just like say like, oh, okay, that's it. Have you had these cases?
Yes, I think I had it more with my kids, right?
Okay.
When they are small and they want something and they start crying, and sometimes you just give them a piece of chocolate, or you let them watch maybe another episode in the TV just to calm them down because you had a long day, you're tired. But in a professional negotiation, you should not do that because you need to know your walk away and when you should go.
Hmm.
And if their claims do not meet your goals, then you just need to go and you need to live with the consequences of it. But I would not settle for a lame deal because the thing is, a deal needs always to be future oriented. This means it needs to bring you a value in the future. And if this is not met, then you should not commit for something.
Okay. Yeah, that's true. That's very important. I agree with you here.
Yeah, but it's not so simple because there is this sunk cost fallacy effect.
Hmm.
When you already invest a lot of time to negotiate the deal, it's harder for you um, to refuse it in the end if it's not meeting your criteria. For example, if you buy a car, yeah, and if you need to drive either just to the next garage, or the guy who sells it lives 200 kilometers away, and you drive there just to see the car, and you go back, you're much the probability that you accept bad conditions for the car that you saw further away is much higher, just because you invested time and efforts. But it makes no sense. If it's too expensive, it's too expensive.
Yeah, that's actually an interesting point. Yeah, so making somebody invest in negotiations just before it started is already a kind of strong move in terms of winning negotiations. Do you agree that it's
Yeah.
important on whose turf the negotiation takes place? Like if it's, I'm not talking about politics
Yes.
now. So let's say there are two companies which work in the same city, and like, is it important whose office the negotiations actually take place in? Is it like the bigger company, or the one who has a better pre-negotiation standing is the host of the negotiation, or how does that work?
Yeah, it's a power game. It's clearly a power game. It's to set the scene. So usually the governments or the health insurers call the pharmaceutical companies over to their place. And you need to travel. You need to be there, and you need to find the entrance. The first time when you go, you don't know where it is, and you have all these things that might bother you the evening before. You might be nervous, and that's the point. They are on their turf, and that's completely fine. Yeah. I think that's fine, but you need to be aware that it's a power game, and if you have the chance, of course, you call them over.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, but in some negotiations, it's clear that you need to go and visit them. With governments, they would refuse to come to your place.
Yeah, yeah. I can imagine that governments and similar rigid structures would not be willing to go somewhere else. Is there any advice you could give to to negotiators who are starting negotiation in this kind of especially unfavorable conditions, like pre-negotiation conditions? Is there any things that they like need to know or to consider?
Yeah, I mean, if it's something
Mm-hmm.
unacceptable, then you need to raise it immediately. We were once in Germany sitting together with an insurer, and the room was so tiny. We were 7 people, and we almost didn't fit in. And then we asked for another room. This was very strange.
Okay, do you think it was
Yeah.
part of
No,
negotiation strategy?
I think because obviously there was another room available
Mm,
in the end, and when we asked for it, so it makes no sense that they take such a small room.
mm. Okay, thank you. That's interesting.
I still didn't understand why they did it because this is an unusual thing. But yeah, like this, it was all for me. It felt already a bit rude, actually.
Mm, interesting. Thank you. So let's talk about neuroscience or scientific approach to negotiations for a second. So you're a neuroscientist by background, yeah.
Yeah.
So could you please explain how these negotiation tactics, how negotiation in general works on biological, biochemistry, or whatever it implies level?
Yeah, I mean, as I said, you have like different sections in the brain that are involved in a negotiation. So you have like the emotional brain that is the decision maker, and it's always like the first point when you say something. This basically enters into the emotional brain more or less directly, and from then there is a decision. Will the brainstem, I call it the beast, be involved because the brainstem is the brain for instinctive
Mm-hmm.
reactions, uh, freeze, fight, or flight, or is the rational brain being involved? And that's where we want to be actually in negotiation. Yeah, we don't want them to be instinctive. We want them to be rationally thinking and discussing. Yeah, and this works the same across cultures, and I think that's also why the skills that we use, they work so well.
Is there any particular subconscious things you could trigger during negotiation, like intentionally? So you want to induce this kind of sympathy to yourself, or I don't know, compassion, or something else. Like, is there any particular triggers that you can play with, knowing how negotiation works on a biological or evolutionary level?
Yeah, I mean, there is different things. I mean, there is different levels that you can use. I mean, one thing is for sure triggering empathy. It's um, called also tactical empathy by police negotiators. This is a very strong because it gives you a positive emotion, and then there is a much higher. I think it's 6 times more likely that they follow your suggestions. And the other thing is, of course, also all you can do with framing, how you say something. You can say an insurance costs $365, or you can say it's like $1 a day. And this also impacts, or as you mentioned, Trump style. You can
Mm-hmm.
anchor and completely bend the reality. These are all kind of tricks that you can use to impact the other side. Or with leasing contracts for cars, if you do the leasing, it's way more expensive. But this immediate benefit, this weighs a lot in our heads. So many people accept the leasing, despite it's never a positive
Mm.
outcome, yeah, in the end. But that's how we work. That's all these things that bend our reality, or our brains that trick us constantly ourselves. You can use it all.
Okay, interesting. Thank you. Um, okay, so we have already, there is a topic that we have already touched upon today, but probably I would like to go a little bit deeper into it for a couple of minutes. That's negotiation in everyday life. So, how often can you say that you like often implement, or you always implement your tactics in your everyday life, or is it that you simply forget? For example, that this was a negotiation situation and I just missed it. Like I could have negotiated a better option for myself, or something. I could have told my kid to be, like to direct them to a different scenario or something. So how often do you how often? My question is, how often do you find yourself negotiating in everyday life?
Yeah, I think as often as everyone else. Yeah, I mean, maybe a bit more on the job than
Hmm.
some of us, but in the private life, it's the same. I mean, I share basically the same life as everyone out here, and that's the difference, right? I think I make relative few mistakes, or things that I think I could have done better in a professional negotiation because I'll prepare. But in private negotiation, I'm also just thrown into a situation, then I need to react. And I think, yeah, because I review the situations, I can react
Hmm.
better and better, and I improved a lot. But I mean, sometimes you're tired, you're hungry, and then it goes ballistic. I think it's normal. It happens to
Yeah.
everyone. But for sure, it's uh, it's much simpler in a professional negotiation to keep the control.
Because is it because you're kind of less invested emotionally in the professional life, or any other reason? Or is it is it
Yeah, I
because
think
you're
that.
kind of
Yeah,
because I understand, I believe we're in a very similar business in terms that we are both of B2B professionals. So in professional life, you are supposed to negotiate. Yeah. So there is this setting. You walk into an office, or you're faced with with a person in a business suit, and you like understand. Okay, so this is situation for negotiation, and I have to remember my techniques or whatever I remember. Yeah, it all pops up, and you go ahead. And family life or like personal life, whatever, it feels different. It feels like, okay, now I want to rest, and then suddenly there is this situation when you have to negotiate, but you just don't feel like it. Is it this way for you too?
Yeah, for sure. It's a big part of it, right? You're tired. You're not into it. In the business setting, now it's time for this negotiation. You have it in your
Hmm.
calendar. You reserve the time. You're prepared. You're ready. You have everything that you need to enter. But in the private life, it just happens.
Yeah.
And I think you're really good. That's why I say these situations are perfect to improve. Because if you master the private life discussions, then that's the highest level. To be in control when you're hungry, when you're tired, and also if a kid comes, yeah, because also with a kid, you don't see them probably on the same level as you because you're the parent, they are the kid,
Hmm.
right? There is a hierarchy, and this you don't usually. There is not that hierarchy in a professional negotiation. If you're with a company, they send people from the same level usually, and I think that's different. Then also you need still to be empathetic to your kids and treat them nicely, and not just
Yeah.
bash them.
While also maintaining some authority.
Yeah, it's also an
Hmm.
important balance. But often, I mean, my learnings is often it's not that bad if you start asking questions. So for example, my daughter, she's a chocolate maniac. She thinks she's addicted. She's really addicted. She's crazy. Since she tasted it, I think with when she was 2 the first time, and ever since she's addicted. And with her, it's also she often asks for it. But now I say, yeah, good. I mean, how important is it that you get it now? Because we want to eat dinner. And she said, yeah, it's not, surprisingly, it's not so important for her to get it now, yeah, when you ask. I say, yeah, what if it was after the dinner? And that's perfectly fine. Yeah, you wouldn't guess. But you could say immediately no. And the no, that escalates the situation because she probably thinks she will not get any this
Yeah,
day.
so as soon as you say no, it's kind of this power game starts. Like no is a way of installing control. You say no, and
Yeah,
it's the same when you ask your kid to do something, and they say no, because I often notice it with my kids, and I understand that this no is not because they don't want to do it. Sometimes they even want to do it, but they say no because they want to say I'm the one in control. You're not telling me what to do. I'm deciding.
yeah, exactly. It rips your control away, right? And I think that's the thing. If you say no, you rip the control to your end, and that's saying no is probably the most assertive thing you can do in a negotiation. On the other hand, you can trigger them to say no. That's also interesting. So, for example, if I call you and I would say, "Hey, Seva, do you have a minute?" Then you probably think first before you say yes. You say, yeah, okay, but you may not feel good because you don't know how long this minute really is, and with a yes, you need to commit to stay in line and listen to me. But if I ask, "Hey, Seva, is now a bad time to speak?" Then you say no, and the no goes much easier.
Hmm.
It's in the end, it's the same, but people tend, when they say no, they are less defensive.
Hmm.
Let's say it's for us. It's simpler to say no. It's processed differently in our
Hmm.
brains,
That's interesting.
so you can actually use these kind of no-oriented questions in some situations to come closer to
Hmm.
yes.
That's interesting. Interesting for me personally because I always considered myself kind of a yes guy. So I'm the one, and I believe it's not only me. There should be like most people are like me. It's um, yes is always saying yes is always kind of seems easier than saying no. But there is an interesting point you made about
Okay.
uh, saying no is the most assertive thing you can make. But is there any tactics for saying no the right way? Because saying no always kind of alerts your counterpart can be can be treated as always as very negative for the reasons we just discussed. Yeah, because the
Mm,
counterpart whom you say no to uh, perceives it as a kind of you're trying to reap control away from them. Yeah. So is there any way to say no without giving the other this feeling of like no, 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 I'm in control. You don't tell me what to do, and without these negative perceptions.
yes, it's you can kind of escalate your no. You can start by saying that's difficult, and then you speak again, yeah. And if they don't stop, you can say, yeah, how am I going to do this? Or how should I make this work? You ask them for advice instead of saying no. So you still show them um, that it's not working for you, but you ask them for advice to overcome the issues. And then if it still doesn't work for you, then you need to say, yeah, sorry, that's really not for me. And if they still try to push through and claim, then you need to say no. Yeah. Then you need to hit them with a
Mm.
no. But I think it's really you can escalate it because when you start by signaling that's difficult for you to accept, then a good negotiator tries to find a solution. It's a signal. It's not yet a no, so it's not that there is little risk that they are stopped. Because also for you, if you say no, it can trigger that they really accepted this no, and there could have been a
Mm.
solution for it. So saying no too early is also not good for yourselves because you never know how they react.
Oh, okay, okay, that's interesting. So coming back to this negotiation in personal life, do you find negotiation techniques
Hmm.
useful in resolving conflict situations? So, for example, there is this situation that where you forgot that you have been negotiating and now there is this conflict and so can you come back to the situation and approach it from a different angle and turn the situation the other way around? So for example, again, we're talking about the kid who was offended by something you said or did, yeah. And is there any way, like, can you come back around and revert the situation in a positive way? Yeah.
Yeah, at least you can always try, right? And sometimes this may require an excuse, depending on how the situation was. But of course, you can always try to come back, yeah, and solve it
Is
for
it that you
sure.
kind of put yourself in a uh, presumably worse situation if you are the one initiating this comeback after the failed negotiations?
Yeah, it depends. I mean, if it depends. If they didn't react well and quit, then they might have feelings of guilt. And if you initiate then um, the contact, it could be a
Hmm.
positive sign for them, and it could help them to open up again because they are ashamed and reluctant to
Hmm.
to rediscuss. On the other hand, I mean, if you have caused the issue, I mean, it could make you look weak, but in the end, I think you need before you do it, you need to be clear that you still have something. If they negotiate with you, you still have something that they want from you, and this is powerful. And that's why I think even if you caused an abort and you go back, I think you're still in a strong position because you have something unique they are still
Hmm.
interested in.
Okay, that's interesting. So always remember about something you have that's interesting for the other person.
Yeah, that's important. I mean, you need to be clear that you have the negotiation power on your end. And that's also a big issue for many people. We always think, the other is more powerful. I have no power. They own all the power. But that's just a perception because you know your restrictions, you know your ambitions, you know your goals, you know your timelines, tight timelines. But they have the same, but you don't see it, and that's why you think they can just negotiate like free. But also they have the restrictions. They have tough goals. They are set under pressure by their
Hmm.
managers.
Okay.
But you don't see it, and that's the only difference.
How much time, like in your particular practice, or maybe in your previous professional tenure, how much time you spend researching about your counterparts standing in terms of what you just said, like the timelines and everything, compared to your own preparations? Like, is it like 50-50, or you focus on them more, or you focus on your position more?
So you mean if I do it in professional or
Uh,
private?
Yeah, so you just mentioned the professional cases because you were talking about the like timelines. I think that I understood kind of more relatable to business part. Yeah, so if we're talking about, just for a second, coming back to the business side. So if we're talking about professional negotiations, what is the ratio of researching your own opportunities and looking for the information for the other person and his, standing?
Yeah, I think I work a lot on what I want actually, and of course I have also ideas what they want or could be looking for. Um, but that's also somehow dangerous if you do it, because sometimes you have a wrong perception
Mm.
on their interests, and this can completely misguide you. Yeah, so you're kind of your own enemy with your assumptions about their interests, and that's why if you do this, then you should prepare questions. You think that's their interest, then you should formulate the question to check if this is really their
Mm.
interest or not, or if you misguide yourselves. And sometimes it happens that they reveal something completely surprising. And I always try to do this very early in the negotiation. But in my professional career, I've had so many negotiations now with the Swiss government. Um, there I kind of know by now more or less what they want. It's for more than a decade
Mm.
the same people, and then you know each other, and it becomes a bit different. Nowadays, I don't always prepare their interests. You develop a feeling, but if I do it on a yeah for some private reasons with a gardener or whatever, then of course I think about his options and his alternatives, and I also look a bit who is that person, what does he like, can I see something about his hobbies, because if he comes to my house, I don't know, to measure something or to have a look at the situation, how it presents, to then subsequently offer me something. I want to establish a relationship, and there I invest time. And also that's also where I invest time in professional negotiation. I always Google persons from time to time again to see if they start a new hobby or
Okay,
something.
that's interesting. Thank you. Um, what can you provide a few examples of some everyday life situations where negotiation can be surprisingly useful. So some situations where we just don't remember we need to negotiate, but when you're saying like negotiation is about everyday life, so what are maybe a couple of situations that you can name where negotiation surprisingly comes into play?
Yeah, it's going. It's where you want to go or spend your next holidays. Um, can be screen time for the kid. Um, can be that a friend wants to borrow money. Can be that you want to buy a car. Can be a discussion with your tax department. A mortgage rate for the bank, with the bank, from the bank. So there is a lot of situations
Is it
where skills
possible
are useful.
to avoid, or not avoid, but some to use the negotiation skills with the tax department? So to because in my understanding, these are the least flexible structures. Like when you're talking with the governments, they say like we have the legislation, so their requirements their demands are regularly based on the legislation. That they say they always start with saying you have to. So you are the citizen. That's why you have to. And is there a way to get out of this situation? Maybe not. You don't have to go into a lot of detail, but just from your personal experience.
I think you cannot, make them do something that is not right. They need to follow the rules. That's clear. But for example, if you fill out your tax form and either you forget something or you just twist a number by accident, this can have consequences. And I think the way you start your interaction with them can lead to a better or worse outcome. And I think everyone had probably such a situation when you type in all these numbers. Sometimes you make a mistake, and then they write you a letter, and it's already like the consequences will be da 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 da. And then usually I write them and say, sorry, I didn't understand probably all of it. Can we quickly schedule a call to help me understand what you really need? And this is perceived positive. That really helps, because then you show that you're interested in solving it, and you're not accusing them and say, but I pay anyway too much. The guy on the other end hears it every day 10 times. That's not the way to start off.
Okay, that's very interesting. And actually, that what you just said brought up an interesting point that I also wanted to discuss. Is of course there is a great difference between written and spoken conversation. Yeah. So in a negotiation, should you be always aiming to have a face-to-face talk, or is it, are there some strategies in place to use for written conversation, written communication? Yeah. In what way are they similar? In what way are they different, in your opinion?
Yeah, written is just you send the information over. There is no voice, nothing, right? And here, even with the video, we see each other. You see how I sit, if I smile, if not. And that's the big difference. You get more information. In a live is the most, and on a call is at least the voice, and otherwise you have just the information. And I think just having the information can be difficult, because you can read a sentence with that or the other pronunciation, and you don't get this information when you just receive a letter. So for me, I prefer calls, or at least video calls or live meetings over just written negotiations.
Okay, thank you. Just to finish off this block on everyday personal life, are there certain types of people that you try to avoid negotiating with? Like, that these are not, these are not the people that you can negotiate with, or do you think that each person has a certain approach to, could be approached in a certain way? We're not talking about some extreme issues like, I don't know, social, but for those situations there are some special negotiation tactics. But yeah, in general, so other just some, let's call them difficult people to negotiate that you try to avoid because you know that it's not gonna it's not gonna it's not gonna end well, or it's just too energy consuming, or for some other reasons.
Yeah, not that I remember actually. I don't. I'm not on
Hmm.
the avoiding end, I guess. I usually try to be nice and at least say a few words. But of course, if someone calls me, a number that I don't know on my mobile, and then they want to sell me something, there it can be that I just quit.
Hmm.
Yeah, because they try to talk you into something, and that's also. I mean, it's also recommended there by the police or officials, that you just quit these calls and
Yeah, yeah,
don't care.
agree.
Yeah. So in these situations, of course, but then there is such an obvious scam, and but otherwise not. I think it's everyone can offer you an opportunity almost, and that's why I would not
Hmm.
just quit.
Okay, interesting perspective. Think of that. uh, Another thing I had in my mind is, this is a little bit philosophical, but would be also interesting to discuss. So, what is the difference? What is your take on that? The difference between negotiation and manipulation. Yeah, so, for example, in the famous Godfather movie, there is this famous scene where Vito Corleone explains his kind of
Yeah,
approach. Yeah, so first he offers a deal, and if he's refused, he applies pressure. So this, you remember this iconic, an offer that you cannot refuse. Yeah. So what is where
yeah,
is the actual border between manipulation and negotiation? Yeah. And is there a way to? Uh, there will be kind of a big question, but yeah, feel free to break it down if necessary. So, is there a way to achieve your goals
I mean, what he does
without
is
crossing
clearly,
ethical boundaries? Yeah.
yeah, what he does in the movie is clearly not a negotiation. He just pressures you, and otherwise he probably kills you. So I don't know the movie scene, but probably he would kill you. So that's not a negotiation, right? And that this is not. I will not allow someone to point the gun and just force me into something. Because, as I said, if I commit to something, it should also have future value for myself. And there, you need to be very clear and to say no if it doesn't fit.
Mm.
But I think what he does, it's not a negotiation, and that's why you cannot compare. There, it's
Mm.
just a straight
Okay, but
no.
okay. So if we talk in general about how do you think? To what extent negotiation is a negotiation, like um, pursuing your goals without like trying not to hurt your counterpart, and to what extent this could be a manipulation? Do negotiation techniques use some manipulative tactics? I believe you have some opinion on that because it's about, you're a neuroscientist, right? So yeah, when you start pulling these strings
Yeah.
inside the other person's brain, so how does it make you feel? Like, do you feel like, yeah, I'm a negotiator, or you feel like like this master of puppets?
It is, of course, you can abuse them. That's clear because they they work in a good way, and if the other party trusts you and you abuse it, the trust, but then you have a problem because on mid to long term, you will be isolated. No one will come back to you. That's the thing. Your reputation matters. And as I said, the best thing is to build many good long-term relationships. And I think if you use these techniques really to avoid difficult situations and to understand the other side, then that's a positive use. If you abuse them just to gain a short-term benefit, it's abusive, and they realize it. Maybe they commit and the deal is not executed. Maybe they commit and the deal is executed, but they suffer every day because of the deal. And this is not helping you build relationships. And in the end, relationships is what matters. People speak. I think there is the global saying, you meet everyone twice. And I really think it is important not to abuse it and to use it for the good, really to be curious, to understand your counterpart and try to find a good deal.
Interesting. How often are you faced with zero-sum game situations? When you understand, so it's either me or him, for example.
I think that's an extreme. It's like the win-win, the zero-sum are the extremes, and I'm not sure they happen rarely, because, as I said, if it's nothing in for me, I walk away. Except maybe with the kid, I give good even there. You give this piece of chocolate, and there is the silence at the end of your hard day in the office. So even there you get something.
But so sometimes you probably have this feeling when it might be not a zero-sum game for you, but for your counterpart. So you understand that, for example, this person is like approaches negotiation. So he says like it's either me or you. So how do you treat this situation? Is there actually a constructive way out of this? Can you change this perception of the other person? So can you explain to them?
Yeah, I mean, you need to address, if it happens, you need to address it, because even if the people say yes, it doesn't mean that it's a genuine yes. It can just be a yes to make you quiet. And then the risk is that the deal is never executed. So what you can do is you can ask questions like, or is something missing to make it a good deal for both of us? And give them the opportunity to speak up, and then you can take it from there. Or you can ask how questions like that. Those help to implement the deals. How do we behave if this and that happens? And that kind of stuff. And then they tell you things and you work on it, you ameliorate the deal, and in the end you have a deal that works for both parties. Because a deal is nothing without the implementation, or a yes is nothing without the how, so to say.
Okay, that's interesting. Thank you. The next two blocks of questions, actually final blocks of questions as we're kind of closing in, are like a little bit more quick, like blitz questions. So the first few would be, I want to present you with a couple of situations that could be life situations or from professionals, or business side, so to say. And you will, like, I'm saying a situation and you are saying, is this a smart decision, not so smart decision, or maybe risky, or you could suggest some other way around. So first one. So your potential partner feels skeptical about your offer, but instead of meeting or a call, you send an email hoping that they will read and agree. Is it smart, not so smart, risky, or your take?
It's risky, because the deal might not be implemented, even if they say yes.
The other one, you receive a job offer with a higher salary than you currently have, and you accept this job offer immediately. What's your take on that? Risky.
risky because you don't know your duties, you don't know the team, and money is only one dimension in your life, and often it's not the most important. You need to have enough to live, maybe also for going to holidays or to drink some beer with your friends. But apart from that, how happy does money
Okay.
make yourself? And it's nice to have, but it's
Okay. Thank
not the
you.
most important.
So imagine you're a sales guy and you send a commercial proposal to a potential client or partner, and 1 week passes, you get no reply, and you decide to follow up with, "So, have you thought about it in a written form? What is your take on that?"
Yeah, yeah. There is this one sentence that really works magic. It's when you write, "Have you given up on X, Y, Z," and not more. And usually they come back in a
Okay,
matter of minutes.
that's a good advice for all the salespeople out there. Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah, indeed. That's the magic trick.
Uh, can you try to pursue? So you're trying, just to continue this sales perspective. You're trying to persuade your client by saying that other companies are already working with you. Is that a smart one?
Hmm. It can work. It can actually work. But I think smarter is to ask what if you feel a hesitation,
Hmm.
why there is a hesitation, or what is the hesitation in his opinion, because then you learn really what is making the person defensive, and you can discuss about the doubts and probably resolve them. And this also gives trust. If there is an elephant in the room and you don't address it, this doesn't build trust. So if you address it and discuss it, this
Okay.
usually resolves
Thank you.
it.
And kind of rapid fire round. I want you to try to have your quick answers on the next few questions. Who's the great negotiator of all time?
Okay. Oh, my kids.
That's nice. Nice.
Yeah, I'm too weak against them.
um, the one thing that instantly kills any negotiation. Okay.
Lack of trust.
Silence is good.
It's good. It's it's good. It's a value. You can
Hmm.
give them time to think, or they can speak
Thank
and
you.
you can learn.
What's more important, logic or emotions? Really? Okay.
Emotions.
Good.
Emotions rule. Yeah, it's the emotional brain that decides in the
Oh,
end
good.
which way to
Thanks.
go.
Your negotiation superpower. Good one.
Listening.
Thank you. Uh, one phrase that you would never start your negotiations with.
One
Yeah.
phrase I would never start negotiation with. Probably accusing them, you did this and that, or you
Mm,
you made a
that's good.
mistake or something. Yeah.
A short and potentially simple piece of advice for anyone who wants to become a better negotiator.
Yeah, learn the skills and practice in your
Okay,
everyday
that's a good one.
situations.
Thank you, Jurian. I have just one probably closing thing. Maybe you want to share with us, like, what's next for you? What's next for Sharp and Gentle? What's the strategy? What's your idea? What's the mission, the goal you are oriented, and yeah. So what's next for you?
Yeah, so I mean, we offer a number of negotiation trainings, and we hope that many people sign up for these and learn the skills and can yeah, live different and better lives, can deepen their relationship using it, and have yeah, have
Yeah,
really
and
benefits.
and probably have fun in life.
Fun is very important. We're also dedicated to have fun trainings, because I think when the training is fun, you learn the most. And it should also be that it's a safe environment where you can, be yourself, or also play a different role than you probably play during every day, because that's what the training is for. Training is for to
Hmm,
to try something new also.
good. Thank you very much, Jurian. Thanks you for joining me. It was an interesting conversation. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks a lot, Seba, for having me.
Thank you.
I enjoyed it a lot. Thanks.